I have made you too small in my eyes, oh Lord, forgive me. And I have believed in a lie. You were unable to help me, but now, oh Lord, I see my wrong. Heal my heart and show yourself strong, and in my eyes and with my song, oh Lord, be magnified, oh Lord.
Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Good morning, sisters and brothers. Today's topic, Moses' costly mistake. The text, Numbers 20, verse 12. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, because you did not believe me, to hallow me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. Several years ago, while driving on a highway in Manchester, Jamaica, I read the thought that says, one moment of careless analysis can cause years of permanent paralysis. This thought gripped my mind to this very day. It was a message to road users to exercise due care and caution, especially in driving and riding. I cannot help thinking of Moses as I think on this thought. It sums up perfectly that which happened in his life. The outstanding decorated servant leader of God, the national hero who delivered the Israelites from Egyptian bondage, established them as an independent nation, and prepared them for entrance to Canaan, the promised land. Moses, the man distinguished as a great lawgiver and through whom Israel's religion was revealed. As a representative of his own people, he received the law from God that constituted God's covenant with Israel, his newly liberated people. Yes, this man whose character stands out as a loving, caring, forgiving, and compassionate servant of God, and of whom Numbers 12 verse 3 says, now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. Moses, the man of whom we read in Exodus 33:11a, the Lord would speak to Moses face to face as a man speaks to his friend. Unfortunately, one blot, one mistake, one poor judgment, one moment of careless analysis, yes, one sin in Moses' excellent leadership cost him dearly. God said in the text to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I will give them. How sad, how disappointed. What was Moses' costly mistake? To be specific, Moses was guilty of two sins, that of disobedience and dishonoring of God. It is strongly believed that after the 40th years, the end of Israel's wandering in the desert, they reached the wilderness of Zin, near the border of Canaan, and they camped at Kadesh, where Miriam, the sister of Moses, died and was buried. There was no water at Rephidim, the place they landed on their first spy mission some 37 years earlier. The people quarreled with Moses then and said, give us water that we may drink. Exodus 17:2b. Moses cried to God for answer to the water crisis. God instructed him to take his rod and go to the rock at Horeb in God's presence and strike the rock to get water for the people to drink. Moses obeyed God then, and the people got all the water needed. Exodus 17 verses 1 to 7. When the children of Israel reached Kadesh the second time during their desert wandering, the old generation, the adults who left Egypt, had almost died, and the new adult generation poised to enter in the promised land. Moses, Aaron, Joshua, and Caleb were among the few adults from the exodus of the old generation still alive. Again, there was no water, and so the new generation attacked and accused Moses and Aaron as their foreparents had done. Read Exodus 20 verses 1 to 12. Listen to their attack on God's servants and by extension on God himself. And the people contended with Moses and spoke, saying, "If only we had died when our brethren died before the Lord. Why have you brought up the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness, that we and our animals should die here? And why have you made us come out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It is not a place of grain, of figs, or vines, or pomegranates, nor is there any water." Wow! What strange words from this ungrateful and rebellious people. Surely they had forgotten that it was their parents' sin that caused their wandering and death. Shakespeare said, "Uneasy is a head that wears a crown." The advice is never to fight fire with fire. So Moses, the humble servant of God, and Aaron his brother did well. They turned the Israelites' rebellion over to God. We read, "So Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and they fell on their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them." Numbers 20 verse 6. Oh, how I wish more of us Christians would follow the example of these men of God, or learn from Charles Swindoll never to get into a spitting match with a skunk, for even if you outspit a skunk, you will end up being stink. Moses was later instructed by God to take his rod, and he and his brother were to gather the people together and speak to the rock in their presence, and water would gush out to satisfy the people and their animals. A generation before, God told Moses specifically to strike the rock for water. Exodus 17:6, as said before. Moses obeyed God then, and water rushed from the rock. This time Moses disobeyed God and called the peoples rebels, saying, "Hear now, you rebels, must we bring water for you out of this rock?" He lifted his hand and struck the rock with his rod, not once, but twice, and water flowed abundantly. Moses crossed God's line. He disobeyed God. He struck the rock instead of speaking to it. Moses stood as a giant between God and Israel over the 40 years, but unfortunately violated this time. Moses reached breaking point. The last straw broke the camel's back, some would say. After the Exodus, Israel raged, slandered, and rebelled several times against Moses, and even planned to stone him. His own sister Miriam and brother Aaron were guilty of throwing dirty water in his face by criticizing him for marrying his darling Zipporah. Moses' cup was full, and as human he went under. So near and yet so far. He sinned against God, and he and Aaron were disqualified in leading the people to Canaan, and personally lost their stake in the promised land. What a costly loss! through one moment of careless analysis. Moses was guilty of disrespecting God and not allowing the people to glorify God for the miracle. Moses and Aaron were sentenced by God to death. They would join the old Israelite death gang, never to enter Canaan. It was a terrible blow to Moses and Aaron. But such is the case. God is no respecter of persons and deserves our loyalty and obedience always. The best of us, like Moses, is prone to making mistakes and sinning against God. The Bible shows that there are other famous people of God who made costly mistakes in their journey with God through moments of careless analysis. Joshua, Moses' successor, believed the Gibeonite story and made peace treaty allowing them to live, and the elders of Israel ratified it without praying and asking God's guidance. Joshua 9 verse 15. Saul spared King Agag and sheep God told him to destroy completely. He lost his crown. 2 Samuel 15. Peter blundered by separating from the Gentiles and refused eating with them because of Jewish fear. Galatians 2 verse 12. James and John, two disciples of Jesus, wanted to call down fire from heaven to burn up Samaritan villages that refused to respond to Jesus' message. Luke 9:54. In closing, having seen how one moment of careless analysis, one moment of blundering, one moment of sin in our Christian walk can short circuit our relationship with God and cause us to miss out on God's best for our lives, where are you now spiritually? How committed are you in listening and obeying God fully? Put another way, are you at the place spiritually where God can count on you to stand for holiness and righteousness during stormy clouds and tests of time? Tough times calls for tough people. Let us all commit our lives to go all the way for God. Amen. Amen.
You have just listened to a sermon by Reverend Zereal Williams. Tune in another time.
Be magnified. Just sing it with us. Be magnified.